Today I decided to give you guys a review of Deadpool and Wolverine. This is the third film in the Deadpool franchise, and the first film featuring Hugh Jackman in the role of Logan slash Wolverine since the movie Logan in 2017. So does this film live up to the other Deadpool and Wolverine movies? Well, let's find out, starting with the story. The basic premise is Deadpool, who is more or less settled in civilian life, is forced back into action when he learns from the TVA that his universe is going to be destroyed, and thus he must travel to other dimensions, find an alternate Wolverine to take the place of the Wolverine who, spoiler alert for the next few seconds, died in his universe in the movie Logan. This leads to the two teaming up and entering into this area known as the Void, where they must defeat a new villain named Cassandra Nova with the help of past Marvel heroes from older films. They also run into several villains from older Marvel films, and basically they have to try to defeat Sandra, return to their world, and stop their universe from being destroyed in this multiverse adventure. That's the basic premise of the film. So now let's move on to the positives. First and foremost, I would have to say Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is the best part of this film. They both do a magnificent job reprising their roles, and their dynamic is the perfect funny man and straight man scenario. For people who don't know what that is, basically, funny man, straight man is where you have a character who's very silly, being the funny man, and a character who plays it straight, being the straight man. It's a great dynamic and it works really good here. Hugh Jackman's serious performance really works well off of Ryan Reynolds' really goofy performance as Deadpool. Another positive to the film has to be the visuals. Most of the effects in a lot of Marvel films these days can run from pretty good to kind of janky. There's really no bad effects in this movie and it looks really good. You can tell they justified the high price tag of this film. The gore effects, even though they're digital, look really nice. Any sort of laser beam or energy blast looks well done. And the villain's powers, where she literally reaches into people's heads, is also really well done and is pretty seamless. There are a handful of moments where the CGI looks kind of cartoony, but I think it was kind of intentional because there are some goofy moments in this film, and that's really the only part where the animation dips into not very believable looking. Another positive of the film would have to be the story. It's not very complex, but it works very well for this kind of movie, which is more or less just a celebration of Marvel's past. It's not as complex as other films in the genre, but it doesn't really need to be, and it embraces what it is, which is just a simple and fun multiverse adventure with characters whom we loved from the past. Another positive is the humor. I have never been a fan of MCU humor, but this thankfully is its own thing. This is the dirty Fox, Ryan Reynolds humor, and it works very well, just like the first two Deadpool films. It's probably the funniest film that's technically part of the MCU, and I really enjoyed the banter back and forth between the two main characters, as well as the side characters throughout the film. Hell, even the villain had sometimes disgusting and hilarious one-liners that I really enjoyed. And lastly, and very surprisingly, another positive of the film is its emotional beats. I never did find the first two Deadpool movies really emotional, but this one actually had some moments that didn't have me tearing up or anything, but did make me feel, maybe a little lump in the throat and like, oh, that's kind of sad. That's kind of well put together. It really does reference the previous films very well, and I think that it utilizes its characters in a way where they can be funny, but they can also be serious when they need to be. My final positive would have to be this film's connections to other movies. It would have been really easy to have this film just be a nostalgia fest with, constant references to other characters. But no, everybody in this film, even though most of them have been in other films, feels needed and it feels necessary for the plot. There's no just moment where like someone just comes by and says, "Hey, look, I'm in the movie. Smile." It all feels necessary and very well interwoven into the story. This is not just a nostalgia fest, although nostalgia very much does play a heavy part into this, you enjoying this film. If one, let's say, was not familiar with the films that they're referencing, they would still enjoy this film just as a really good compilation of heroes coming together to save the day. But thankfully, it treats its older characters with respect, with the exception of maybe one, and I think that really leads to a film that doesn't just rely on nostalgia, but uses it properly to elevate the story. On to some mixed aspects of the film, and one of those I think would have to be its sidelining of some of the characters from the previous Deadpool movies. Most of the characters from those films are in this movie, but some of them just feel almost like glorified cameos. The cast of the first two films do feel a little bit neglected. I'm not saying they had to have a huge part, but maybe they could have helped out in the finale or have had more stuff to do in the beginning of the movie. They're there for the most part, but they do feel a little bit tacked on. As for my negatives, there's really only one, and what that is at the beginning of the second act, there's a little bit of a lull. And this might not be the same for everybody, but for me, I just felt like the pacing slowed down a little bit once we entered to the void. Thankfully, it picks back up early on into that sequence, but at first, the film does hit kind of a lull and it gets a little bit slower in order to dump some exposition on you. It's not really like a big deal, but I kind of liked a more smoother transition between the introduction and the main plot. But other than that, there's really not much I can say about this film that I didn't like. All in all, I just think that the film really handles the past well. It really respects the Deadpool legacy, and it really respects Wolverine. You really do feel for these characters, and you hope they completely succeed in order to save their universe. It's just a fun time all around, and it's actually one of the better MCU films, especially in more recent years. All in all, I'm going to have to give Deadpool and Wolverine an 8 out of 10. It's really solid, and I don't think that it's a game changer like some people will think that it is, but it's a very fun and entertaining movie that really does bring back heroes that we loved in an entertaining manner. Now that I've given my score, I'm going to do some slight spoilers up ahead. And for one, and it's just one that I had a problem with. I'm not going to give away all the cameos in this movie. I do recommend that you see it. But one that I had a problem with was Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm is once again played by Chris Evans, who also played Captain America. There's a really cool reveal where you think he's actually Captain America, but then he says flame on and becomes Johnny Storm. He goes up against Pyro, a character who is just significantly weaker in both the comics and the movies, and Pyro immediately sucks up his powers and takes him out really quickly when Johnny tries to blast him. I understand that Pyro can control fire, but I just found that to be kind of dumb, that just for a laugh that we're going to just have Pyro magically be more powerful. This ultimately leads to Johnny getting captured and into his death at the hands of the main villain. It was kind of a laugh, but I felt it was a little bit of a wasted opportunity not to have him in the final battle, which I think would have been really cool. And I think that they kind of squandered that character for a laugh. You could have had him survive the movie and been in the final battle, which would have been really cool. I'm all for a good, funny cameo, but at the same time, I was just kind of rolling my eyes like, all right, that's funny, but you kind of missed an opportunity there. I don't really say it's a negative, but just a nitpick that I have with the movie that kind of irked me a little bit. And there are several other cameos throughout the film that are just as good as his and better. I thank y'all for watching. This has been a fun video to make. I'm left out spoilers. I do recommend you seeing the film. It's definitely worth it. It's damn near a 9 out of 10, but I do think 8 is a fair score. Leave your thoughts on the film down below if you've seen it, or just tell me your favorite Deadpool or Wolverine film. I thank you all for watching, and peace out.